Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. What if Social Security went private? It is one of the most heavily relied upon government programs in America, with tens of millions of people relying on it for retirement, for disability, and for survivor benefits. But there are serious questions about the future of the program. The newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, has been tasked with cutting federal spending. And as part of this broader effort, the Social Security Administration is facing significant budget cuts. For this fiscal year, the SSA plans to slash its budget by around $800 million, reduce its workforce by 12%, and shift more of its services online in the name of modernization and efficiency. This administration and the DOGE team say that this will help to eliminate waste, cut costs, and to help reduce fraud. But critics argue that it's weakening public trust in the Social Security program and that potentially it's paving the way for privatization. So what would privatized Social Security look like? And more importantly, what would that mean for your retirement? Well, let's take a look. As it stands today, Social Security operates as a pay-as-you-go system, meaning today's workers are funding the benefits for today's retirees. When the program was first established back in the late 1930s, the numbers were heavily in its favor. There were roughly 160 workers for every one beneficiary. But over time, the demographics of our population have shifted. By the 1960s, that ratio had dropped to 5 workers per retiree. And now, as we head into 2025, it's down to just 2.7 workers per beneficiary. And any surpluses in funding get invested in U.S. Treasuries, but these only generate a modest return. So in the beginning, funding Social Security wasn't really an issue. We had a huge pool of worker and relatively few beneficiaries compared to number of workers. But today we have a growing number of retirees and a shrinking labor force, and people are living longer than ever. So the math just doesn't add up the way it used to, and we have to change the program if we want it to be sustainable for the long term. There are a number of ideas on the table, and a lot of the proposals talk about adjusting the benefits formula, or adjusting the age at which benefits can be claimed, or adjusting the payroll tax, or lifting the cap on income. But some proposals talk about revamping the system entirely, changing it from a government-run program to a privatized model. Some critics, including Elon Musk, have called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. So let's break that down. Now, a Ponzi scheme is when early investors are paid from money from new investors, and when new investors dry up, the system entirely collapses. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system, where it is today's workers who are currently paying into the system that benefits today's beneficiaries. But there is a key distinction in that Social Security is a legal, transparent, and program that is backed by the U.S. government. It is not a scam. It is a social insurance program designed to keep our elderly out of poverty. And at that, it has largely worked. When Social Security was first designed, 50% of Americans who were in their senior years lived in poverty. Today, that number is 10%. However, there are those who take contention with how the program is funded. They argue that they would rather take their own earnings and pay into their own fund to fund their own personal retirement, rather than paying into a government social insurance program that just pools funds for everyone. Privatizing Social Security would mean shifting from a government-managed program to one where individuals take control of their own retirement savings through personal investment accounts. Instead of paying payroll taxes that get pooled into a collective fund that support all retirees, workers would instead get to take a portion that goes into individual accounts that they then get to choose how it gets invested. The goal here is that it would be able to capture a higher rate of return based on market performance, giving individuals greater control of their future. The central idea is that workers would allocate a portion of their payroll taxes into accounts held in their own name, dedicated solely to their own retirement, and they would get to choose how this gets invested, and that would ultimately determine what their own personal benefit would be. It would be based off the growth or decline of their own investments. The system offers a potential for higher returns compared to the traditional Social Security model. especially over the long term. But this does introduce risk because the actual performance of the investment would be based on market performance. And this could mean that during market downturns, we could have people who would see their investment decline. And this could be very concerning for those at or near retirement. For many, the appeal lies in control. Individuals would feel a greater sense of ownership over their own personal retirement, knowing that it is their money that gets pooled for their retirement, not into a collective pool for everyone. The government's role would likely shift away from managing the fund directly to more of an oversight role, just looking at maintaining fairness and transparency and preventing mismanagement of funds or fraud. It's important to note that the idea of privatizing Social Security isn't new. In fact, it's been floated as an idea from presidents from both parties over the years. In the late 1990s, President Bill Clinton explored the idea of partial privatization. He proposed investing a portion of the Social Security trust funds into the private sector, similar to how traditional pension funds are managed. And the goal here would be to capture a higher rate of return rather than simply relying on low-returning government bonds. A few years later, President George W. Bush took the idea even further. He proposed allowing workers under the age of 55 to direct a portion of their payroll taxes into personal investment accounts. The goal here was that we would address that looming shortfall from the Social Security trust funds itself, but it would also give individuals greater control and autonomy over their own retirement. And despite a nationwide push, Bush's plan faced very strong opposition from both Republicans and Democrats. There was a lot of concern about the risk that would be introduced, the lack of guarantee on benefits, the cost of the transition itself, and ultimately the proposal stalled and never even made it to Congress for a vote. At a recent BlackRock retirement summit, CEO Larry Fink reflected on Bush's 2005 proposal, and he said that some Americans would have 4 times the retirement savings today if the plan had been successfully implemented, based on the actual performance of the S&P 500. His critique: the problem we have now is that Social Security doesn't grow with the economy. Instead, reserves simply get invested into low-yield Treasury securities, whereas equities have traditionally and historically had much higher returns. Australia's retirement savings system, known as the Superannuation system, offers a real-world example of a privatized approach to retirement funding. How it works is that employers are required to contribute a set percentage of an employee's earnings into their superannuation fund. This current percentage is 11.5%, and it's scheduled to increase to 12%. And these funds go directly into an individual account with the employee's name on it, and they can select how it gets invested from a variety of funds, or they can simply go with the employer's selected default. Has it worked? Yes. By the vast majority of measures, it's been a major success. It has allowed Australia's superannuation system to grow into one of the largest pension systems in the world. It has dramatically improved retirement readiness for Australians, and there's far less reliance on government-funded programs. And beyond just the individual impact, it's funneled billions upon billions of dollars into the capital markets, so it's had long-term economic growth for the entire country. What about lower income earners? For those with limited savings or irregular work histories, Australia provides a public safety net through the age pension. It's a means-tested benefit that is funded through general tax revenue, and it's designed to ensure that those who didn't accumulate enough in their super still have income support in retirement. So perhaps this system could serve as a model for privatizing Social Security. Transitioning Social Security to a privatized system would be a major undertaking, and there is no shortage of proposals on how it might be done. One common idea is to allow today's workers to divert a portion of their payroll taxes into individual accounts where they would then get to choose how this money gets invested. But there is a problem, there's a catch, and that today's workers are the ones who are funding today's beneficiaries. So shifting money into private accounts could certainly create a funding gap for current beneficiaries. To address that, some proposals suggest issuing government bonds to help cover the shortfall, although it's worth keeping in mind that this would increase the government debt obligations in the short term. Other proposals suggest tweaking the benefit formula or changing the age at which people claim to help cover this shortfall. any of these approaches would come with trade-offs, and none of them would be simple. Reforming a program that is foundational as Social Security would be very complex. It would require a lot of careful planning and, yes, a lot of political will. One of the biggest concerns with privatizing Social Security is market volatility. Retirement income would be tied to investment performance, and that means during prolonged periods of market downturns, individual accounts could take really big hits, and that could reduce how much benefit a retiree could pull from their account. Others argue that having a well-diversified portfolio would help mitigate this risk. Another very real challenge is the cost of transitioning, because it is today's workers who are funding today's retirees. And so naturally the question becomes, how do we continue to support today's retirees and give them the benefits that they were promised for a system that they paid into for their entire working career, while also allowing younger workers to continue to maybe divert some money to their own individual accounts if the system were to change? There are also equity concerns. People with lower earnings or limited financial literacy may struggle to benefit as much from private accounts. Without safeguards in place, this could significantly widen the economic gap in retirement, leaving some significantly worse off. So what do you think? Should Americans have full control over their retirement future, or is the system we have in place a better bet for the long term? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. Millions of Americans know personal benefits. No, I didn't mean to say benefit. Investment. A more oversight traditional pension funds. Employees can choose their own option, or they can go with the employer's default. Did I just mess up my lipstick? I didn't. We're good. Sad day for this lipstick. The signature Erin Talks Money color, done. It's been discontinued and I had to throw it out, and my neighbor is raking leaves. Oh, it's gonna mess up my audio. Come with trade-offs. Very careful planning. We're gonna need a lot of political will.